Hey everybody, it's Fancy Nancy Friday. Whoop whoop. And you know what that means? It's Friday. So that means I'm trading in my bedtime headband and my bedtime bathrobe for my tiara and my nanciest jewels. So tonight, remember, it's time for bedtime. So that means you've already combed your hair, your fancy hair, and you've already brushed your fancy teeth. You have? Great. Let's get started with Fancy Nancy Friday. Tonight's story is called Fancy Nancy and the Late Night. I adore visiting my neighbor, Mrs. Devine. Here we are having tea on her veranda. That's a fancy word for porch. When she was a child, Mrs. Devine lived in Hollywood. She used to see lots of movie stars. Only Mrs. Devine calls them celebrities. Isn't that fancy? She has a special scrapbook of photographs. Some are autographed. That means celebrities signed them. Your scrapbook is extremely fascinating, I say. Fascinating is even more interesting than interesting. Ooh la la! Mrs. Devine says I can borrow her scrapbook if I bring it back tomorrow. Merci, 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 I say. At home, I pretend that I am a Hollywood celebrity. I dress up in my most glamorous attire. That's fancy for clothes. I give my autograph to all my fans. I pose for photographs. That Fancy Nancy is too much. She's so extra. She reminds me of somebody else I know. I am late for a glamorous Hollywood party, I tell my fans. Au revoir. You say it like this. Au revoir. That's French for goodbye. On my door, I put up a sign that says, do not disturb, because celebrities need their privacy. I want to look through Mrs. Devine's scrapbook, but I hear my dad calling us all to dinner. After dinner, I learn all my spelling words. I am practically an expert at spelling. Before I know it, Mom says, Nancy, time for bed. Oh no, I haven't had a second to look at the scrapbook. I beg my mom to let me stay up later, but my mom says no. It's a school night. Tomorrow is Friday. Tomorrow, you can stay up later. So we can stay up late tonight. You can't turn the pages. I put on my nightie and get in bed. My parents kiss me goodnight. Sleep tight, they say. But guess what? I am not going to sleep. Under the covers I have concealed. That's fancy for hidden. A flashlight and the scrapbook. I stay up very late It's almost 10 o'clock when I put away the scrapbook and turn off my flashlight. I bet even celebrities don't stay up this late. The next morning when my dad wakes me up, I'm exhausted. Exhausted is even worse than tired. At recess, I am too exhausted to jump rope with Bree and my friends. I missed 3 of the words on my spelling test. My brain is exhausted too. After school, I return Mrs. Devine's scrapbook. She asks if I would like to stay for dinner and watch a movie called National Velvet. It is on TV tonight. It is about a girl and a horse. I loved it when I was your age, she says. It sounds fascinating, but I can hardly keep my eyes open. I go home and start weeping, which is fancy for crying. When my dad asks what's wrong, I confess I was naughty. I stayed up late last night and I had a terrible and exhausting day. My dad doesn't scold me. He says, now you understand why you need a good night's sleep. That night, I go to bed even earlier than my sister. On Saturday, I wake up feeling glorious again. Glorious is fancy for wonderful. And guess what? Mrs. Devine taped the movie for me. I can see it tonight. Dad was right. Even fancy girls need their beauty rest. The end. Thank you so much for staying up late tonight with me and Fancy Nancy on Fancy Nancy Friday. Now, tonight you might be able to stay up a little bit later, but don't forget, next week a lot of you will be starting school and you need lots and lots of beauty rest. Not just for your beauty, but for your brain too. Just like Fancy Nancy said, if your brain is exhausted, you won't be able to do things that you normally would do really well, like ace the spelling test or play on brain break with your friends. So it's very important that you get lots of sleep. Thank you guys so much for joining me and Fancy Nancy, and we'll see you back here tomorrow night. Good night, everybody.